the final race of the 2015 Formula One World Championship. It's gone in really the blink of an eye, it would seem, and Abu Dhabi, as ever, holds the proceedings for the final race of the season under lights. We do hope for some kind of fireworks, of course, with Mercedes once again coming out on top this season, and deservedly so, it must be said. So we'll be having quite an in-depth preview of the season finale. We've also got other things to discuss, of course. Sebastian Vettel, he hasn't had the title once again this year, but to complement three victories in his debut outing with Ferrari this season, last weekend he was crowned the champion of champions at the Race of Champions, and he was quite a happy man about that. Mark Webber, what more can you say about him? After all the years of his setbacks, he moves to the World Endurance Championship, and in his second season of asking with Porsche, he is a world champion at last. At Bahrain on the weekend, he did the job, and he's got that elusive title. Cosworth, 2017, you've got the independent engine. There's a lot of conjecture there as to who will take the tender for that. There's a few different names being floated, but at the moment it seems that Cosworth don't want to make yet another return to the sport. And last but not least, very poignant, I think, from my colleague here, Abu Dhabi, of course. 12 months ago, he made a long trip to the circuit and had a great weekend there, and he's got very fond memories about his experiences there. And I'm sure that I'll be able to prod him with some questions about what he can just recall quite vividly, pretty much 12 months to the day as it is, and we'll be talking more about it on Sunday, pretty much as he recollects his thoughts heading into the race itself. But as ever, I'm Baden Westerweller. Joining me, Jawad Yakub. How do you feel now? It's coming to an end. It's a bit of a mixed emotions, you would say. You don't know what to make of it. Obviously, it's been one of those seasons again where it's been dominated by one team, but nevertheless, you want to see them finish off on a high, and then we can get our hopes up about 2016.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be here, of course, and yeah, looking forward to talking about the trip last year as well later on in the in proceedings. But yeah, it's hard to sum up this season in a sense because it feels like it was a season that never was, bit of a phantom season, if you like. But I'm sure we'll have more thoughts to discuss regarding the season as a whole when we come to next week and probably the week after when we do our season reviews and all that. But yeah, 19 races, it's gone in the blink of an eye. And as you alluded to before, 12 months, since I was in Abu Dhabi for the climax of the 2014 championship, and that was the championship was still very much alive at that point. Lewis Hamilton versus Nico Rosberg, and the controversial double points as well at the time. But yeah, now that the championship is over, the main championships, I guess, are over. We still got a few little minor places to sort out, but I guess, everyone will go in, they'll do their best, and hopefully we get a good race and some fireworks for the finale.
Absolutely. There's been plenty of conjecture about the forerunners, Mercedes. It's pretty much a granted they're going to be at the front yet again this weekend. But the conservation notion that personnel are going to instruct Hamilton and Rosberg just to hold station depending on how they line up on the grid from Saturday into the race. And a lot of people, a bit of an outcry, they're thinking there's nothing to lose really for both parties here. Why would they be so restrained when really for all the fans as well, they want to see something a bit out there? Because it has been, I must admit personally, I've lost a bit of interest the past few races, just seeing this procession of the silver arrows, and whatever does happen, even if it is a 1-2 and they're fighting it to the death, I just want to see something where it feels as though they're really leaving it all out on the track come the conclusion of the race. It'd just be a nice way just to punctuate what has been a bit of an extension on your term, phantom. I'd say for me, just a fizzer of a season. We've had the highlights, no doubt. Silverstone, we had Hungary, we had Malaysia, plenty of action there, really. But for the whole, it's just been one that really you're not going to look back on too fondly in years to come. So it would be nice just to see Mercedes swallow their pride a bit and say whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? Will the gloves come off for this final race now that They've secured second in the championship for Nico Rosberg as well. Will we see the team allow their two drivers to fight to the death? And not literally to the death, but yeah, you know what I mean. But this was interesting, going off what I said last week, or what we said last week, that there were some people accusing the team of tanking in order to secure Rosberg that second position in the championship. Well, now that that's done and out of the way, could we actually see the gloves come off? And we'll look at Rosberg's stats at the moment. He's looking at potentially his first hat trick of wins in his Formula One career, having won in Mexico and Brazil. He's also on track for picking up 6 consecutive pole positions as well. His recent run of form and qualifying has been quite good. And yeah, Lewis Hamilton, he'll be chasing a 44th career victory as well. And wouldn't that be special for driver number 44? He's also won twice before in Abu Dhabi, of course. Last year, that special moment where he clinched his second championship. But I think, it'll be, once we get to Sunday, we'll see. And as you alluded to before, if it depends on who claims pole position or whatever, we'll get the what do you call it? Get the benefit of better strategy. Then it's interesting how this is going to go into next year, because they'll have to constantly be looking behind if Ferrari catch up to them, and if they're going to continue playing conservatively, then I don't know, you're going to have more people complaining about it being boring and whatnot. So,
well, what I did read from James Allen, I believe last week, he was saying that there would be a precedent created if the Mercedes head honchos there did let the two drivers race. And I just find it a bit disarming to think that even though we're well aware of the situation, the drivers are aware too. They're knowing it's all gloves are off, I guess. There's nothing really to lose or to gain out of it. So what's the harm in just letting them just have a go? If it ends in tears, so what? Next season, you reset the clocks again. I don't think it's really going to have this long-term effect if we do see some kind of controversy. And we all want it, I think. And if it comes to pass that they're not the ones leading on Sunday, it might be Sebastian Vettel gets another chance at a victory there. That'd be great too. But I just think really it's arbitrary, this thought that if there's a coming together on Sunday, then somehow we're going to have a fractured cohesion going forward. It's just academic.
Well, to be honest, I think their relationship is already fractured as it is. I mean, there's probably just a bit of respect between, there's probably a bit of mutual respect between the two drivers, but as far as any further fracturing goes, it's probably not possible. So, I mean, if Rosberg's form that he's shown in the past few races is genuine, and that he genuinely has those few tenths over his teammate at the moment, then we want to see him do it for this race as well. And if he can complete the hat-trick of wins, then we can pretty much say that his form is going to go, it's good enough, and he is quicker than Hamilton at the moment. So I think that's what we're probably looking at. But then again, if we don't get the fireworks between them, then people will say it was boring or whatever. But who knows? I mean, there's nothing left to play for this season apart from a bit of personal pride. And heading into next year, I guess Rosberg coming out as top dog with these 3 race wins, if he can complete them, it's going to be important, and we'll just have to look forward to next year anyway. But interesting, like what you were saying before about Sebastian Vettel, he's actually won the most races at this circuit with 3. And also, his teammate Kimi Räikkönen had that popular victory here as well in 2012 for Lotus. So Ferrari drivers no slouch around Yas Marina circuit, but they've always been quicker on the super soft tyres this season. This is something we've seen, and this is the first time for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix that they're going to have soft and super soft tyres instead of the mediums, and perhaps that might force some aggressive strategy. But then again, the temperatures are quite cool at night in Abu Dhabi, and I can say for a fact, being there at this time of year, during the day it's blazing hot, but by the time it hits 5, 6 o'clock around when the race starts, the temperatures do drop considerably. So we will see what happens.
The benefit of being on location, I think maybe if it was so simple, just deploy you or the both of us to each circuit and would have this first-hand knowledge, know all the intricacies of each circuit's characteristics there, because of course it's a bit of a polarizing venue, this one. Initially it really came in for a lot of criticism, but in recent years it's been rehabilitated somewhat, its image, and we've seen some really good scraps, not least in 2012 when Kimi took that enormously popular victory whilst he was at Lotus. So I think generally, yeah, it's come fair way in recent years. And from your own experiences, as we'll cover in more detail during Nostalgia Straight, certainly it's got plenty to offer.
Yeah, plenty to offer for sure. And this will probably, I'll talk more about this in Nostalgia Straight, of course. But as a driver's circuit, it's probably not the most enjoyable driving around it. It's very technical. It's a typical Herman Tilke circuit, 5.5 kilometers, and though it does have the longest straight on the F1 calendar as well, the final two sectors are pretty challenging, and makes it's a bit difficult to overtake in that section, of course. But sector 1 is pretty good for the overtaking. Sector 1 is probably my favorite part of the track, where you go fast into turn 1 and then the turn 2, 3, 4 complex, and then heading down into the stadium section, the North Grandstand over there, the hairpin. Plenty of overtaking opportunities, and of course the longest straight on the F1 calendar as well, and you'll have DRS down that too.
Oh, there's plenty of overtaking opportunities, that's for sure. I've seen in years gone by that possibly come to tears at the end of that straight, and we are fingers crossed, both of us, I think, for some kind of shenanigans on race day. But we'll discuss that, I think, more during Nostalgia Straight from your recollections, and on Sunday after we've learnt the grid, and we'll see what we can make from that. But I think in terms of the finale, we've still got a bit to play for further down the grid. We can see that battle for P4 now that Sebastian Vettel, he's entrenched in that third position. So it's Kimi Räikkönen, Valtteri Bottas, just solitary points separating the two. Of course, they've had their share of comings together this season, Russia, and then reciprocation from Valtteri to the elder Finn at Mexico, and they pretty much labelled it fair as fair. They were having a bit of a squabble between them, and I guess ultimately it hasn't ended in too much anger from both parties, but they've got plenty to fight for in this sense.
Plenty to fight for indeed, and I guess if you look on the whole between the two Finns, it's not been great seasons for either of them. I mean, Valtteri Bottas is, considering his form last season, he was really tipped to stepping things up this year and perhaps even being the leading light for Williams in terms of claiming that first Grand Prix victory and the first victory for the team since 2012. But they haven't really materialised in much. They haven't really materialised many good results. I think 3 podiums is all they've achieved thus far, and the same thing can be said about Kimi Räikkönen as well, considering the revival of Ferrari. Räikkönen's had a bit of bad luck, but also he's let himself down on a number of occasions when he had good qualifying positions. Canada when he was starting third, and then of course Monza where he was on the front row, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, compared to Kimi's teammate Sebastian, Kimi hasn't on paper been at all up there, but I think this will be a bit of reconciliation for Räikkönen if he can seal out fourth in the championship behind his teammate, making it a Ferrari 3-4. But Bottas certainly will be hoping to get the better of his compatriot, and of course he was on the podium here last season with his teammate Felipe Massa. But a lot as well, as you were saying, further down as well between 7th and 8th in the standings between the two Red Bull drivers. It's amazing that Danny Kvyat in his first season at Red Bull is leading his senior teammate in Daniel Ricciardo, who again, like Bottas last season, really emerged as this potential world champion. He had the 3 wins, of course, with Red Bull, those numerous podiums as well. But yeah, Ricciardo currently sitting 10 points in deficit to Kvyat, so that'll be an interesting one to see how that pans out.
Absolutely. I think Ricardo, though, and Kvyat, it really is it's an academic outcome, regardless of whether they do sit 7th or 8th between them. They've both had their share of hard luck, and ultimately it's been a bit of an equaliser. And as we've mentioned several times, 2016, hopefully they've resolved the engine issues there, whether they continue with this unbadged Renault PU. We just hope to see them be able to put their best foot forward without any inhibitions there, because they're both clearly potential for world champions. We've seen last year with the Australian, he was very much in contention to the late portion of that season. So for him, it's been a frustration, but he can't really have done anything more. And really, I think they've been overshadowed to a large extent. You look a bit further down, Max Verstappen, he's on the cusp of a top 10 in the standings debut, and he couldn't have done anything else. And really, it's surprising again. He's been polarising to a lot of people. They said, of course, that he shouldn't have been on the grid, being 17 at the start of the season, but he's come so far. And even Sebastian Vettel remarked a few days ago he's surprised to see just how well he has performed this season.
Yeah, he's really shown a cool head, and I think we said the same thing last week. Sorry, not last season. And I reckon we'll talk more about him as the season ends, and we look back on the season at large. But yeah, Verstappen on the cusp of claiming 10th in his debut season, but he's still got 13 points to recover to Nico Hulkenberg, who sits in 10th at the moment. But also tied on points with Verstappen is Romain Grosjean, and it's rather poignant for Grosjean that this will be his final race at Enstone. I mean, he's been there for so long, despite the acrimonious debut in 2009. He still kept his ties with the team, but he returned full time in 2012. Had a bit of an up and down season in 2012. Had the podiums, but also had those first lap incidents, notably Belgium, where he ended up copping that one race ban. But yeah, in 2013, he continued his good form. He even got the better of his teammate Kimi Räikkönen at that time as well. So it's rather poignant, and probably going to be very emotional between Grosjean and Lotus as they end their relationship. Grosjean off to Haas, of course, next season. But if he could get them into the top 10 and recover those 13 points, that would be a good way to end that tenure on a high too.
And for Grosjean, he does loom as a smoky 2016. If Haas has their act together with the more than a customer status with their Ferrari relationship, it's almost a quasi satellite team we have here. The North Carolina operation, then who knows? They could really pull something out of the hat, and he could finally get that next step he's been wanting to make really for quite a few seasons, and been able to see that the frustration, just that evolution, which didn't quite come after Kimi Räikkönen, really. 2013, he departed, and they had the financial issues at Enstone, and that's just held him back from realising that true potential. And no doubt he'll be a race winner, potentially championship material, just like the Red Bull drivers, if he's given a commensurate package to apply his trade.
Of course, and it's good to see that Grosjean, despite his his quite vocal frustrations through last year, and then even this year, where they had a lot of bad luck, considering how decent that Lotus chassis was this season. He's stuck to his guns and remained loyal to the team. But now that the opportunity presented itself, and he's made it no secret that Haas is a good stepping stone to become a Ferrari driver eventually. He's got his eye set on that. He's just looking to move up, and he's also said that he hasn't ruled out of one day coming back to Enstone potentially. And I think we've discussed this before as well with the Renault deal, which should be confirmed this week. They said Abu Dhabi was the deadline. If Renault do come back into the sport and take over Enstone, perhaps in the future he may look at coming back. So it would be a good reunion for those guys. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But elsewhere as well, we've got McLaren in the Constructors' Championship currently sitting ninth, and they've got 9 points deficit to Sauber, who's eighth at the moment. And McLaren will definitely be targeting trying to get those 9 points and getting ahead of Sauber, because even though P8's quite low in the standings, P9 will be even worse, and is a considerable loss of prize money if they do finish down there, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's been obviously from Sauber's point of view, they reached pretty much the nadir in 2014, pointless for the first time in their really quite respectable history, 22, 23 seasons on the grid, and they've come a fair way. Obviously, consistent points in the back half of the season, but they're still a long way off re-entering that true midfield bracket. And as for McLaren, well, they're just got to be hoping for pot luck on the weekend, snag another P5 or a P7, really solid haul of points to go some way to resurrecting the season from hell for them. There's no other way of describing it, and as we've alluded to, really, there's not really a great deal of optimism that things are going to improve dramatically in 2016. So they've just got to take what they can at the moment. And the sponsors dropping like flies, of course. We saw a Boss depart to Mercedes ahead of this season, and now Tag Heuer too. They're off to Red Bull. And we all know about Red Bull. They're the ones who have been deliberating for such a long time whether they'll even remain in the sport. So that's just a clear show that they're really got no faith in Woking to turn it around anytime soon.
And it's going to be a difficult task indeed for McLaren over the winter. Jenson Button, their driver, having made it no secret that it'll be quite the task is enormous to recover the 2.5 seconds deficit that they have with that Honda power unit. But he does have confidence. He says that things will change, but things can happen. Not saying miracles exactly, but things could change, and they might be on song come next year. Maybe not in a position to win championships or whatever, but they might recover that performance that they lost and perhaps emerge back in the midfield or pushing for a podium position. But I guess yeah. Sorry.
I was going to say, we did see it with Williams, of course, when they went from Renault to Mercedes power in 2012, 2013, 2014. They came from barely registering any points to being in contention for race victories several times and many podiums. So I don't know if they'll be able to affect such a similar outcome, obviously still with a Honda power unit, which is wanting in almost all departments. But it can be done. But from the outset, it really does look like that's wishful thinking. 2017, 2018 is a realistic time frame to be seeing McLaren restored to their former glory.
Pretty much. So I guess we'll move it on then. We'll discuss more about the race come Sunday with our race preview, wrap up qualifying and everything as well. So what you were saying? Yep.
Yeah, I'll say quickly too, bit of a shout out to the Manor boys, John Booth and Graham Loudon there, of course, that they've flown under the radar, but they've had a lot of adversity to deal with in recent seasons, and it's the culmination at Abu Dhabi, 6 years on the grid, and as we've said a few times in previous editions, we hope they're not lost to the sport, but for them, let's hope Manor can sign off on a high, and we do see Roberto Meri restored to his race seat there alongside what's his name? Who's that guy, as Alonso would say, the British driver? That's the one.
The guy that I met at the Caterham signing last year at Abu Dhabi. I forgot his name. No, Will Stevens it is.
A bit anonymous, you could say. But for them, of course, I want to see them finish the year on a nice note after everything they've had to deal with, especially mid-season with that tragic passing of Jules Bianchi, and into the future with Mercedes. Hopefully it's the start of bigger and better things for them. But yeah, anyway, there's more to discuss. We'll discuss on Sunday, of course, how the race might turn out. But Sebastian Vettel, as mentioned off the top there, a debut campaign for Ferrari. Can't have asked for really a lot more. Maurizio Arrivabene was forecasting 2 victories to be a positive outcome this season. He's managed 3. Many podiums, I believe 13 or 14 of them. So that's really consistency from him. And he's punctuated that now with a race of champions victory last weekend, and for him it was quite poignant too. He had lots of ties to really his idol Michael Schumacher from years gone past when they teamed up at this event, and for him, I think it was his way of saluting the German who is continuing his recovery at his home in Switzerland.
Yeah, well, they had 6 previous victories, I think, in the Nations Cup part of the Race of Champions, where they team up with, of course, with a different driver from their country, and they had quite a bit of success. But in terms of the solo crown, he I don't think ever made it past the semis as well. So quite a substantial victory for Grosjean won the last one. Yeah, quite a victory for Sebastian Vettel being crowned champion of champions. And the thing that fascinates me about the Race of Champions is that there's so many different international names that compete in it, and it's so good to see. I didn't get the opportunity to watch it this weekend. Did you, Baden? I forgot to ask.
No, I only saw very little tidbits, honestly. I was hoping to, but other commitments kept me from it all. But from what I did see, it looks like it's endured over the seasons. You get different walks of the categories come in, and really it's just good to see, really, in a equal machinery, more or less. They get to put their best foot forward, and it's the only way, really, that you can see ultimately from the globe who comes out on top. And for Sebastian Vettel, he does have a lot of polarizing opinion around him, but there's no doubting that he's one of the best at it. And we do hope on a more personal level, I guess, yeah, from Michael Schumacher's point of view, when we do look back at the fond memories there that he did have of him, it was just a nice way for him just to pay his salutes to him, and then see those other drivers as well just doing the same, like Tom Christensen. Obviously now he's pulled out of his LMP1 duties, just to see him back at the fold too. It's probably not the most significant occasion on the grid in terms of events when you think of Indy 500 and Monaco and Le Mans, but
It's sort of it's a nice sort of novelty. Even it's a nice sort of novelty event, but at the same time, it's almost like a Goodwood sort of festival of speed thing, where you've got this gathering of big names and good big machinery, and it's almost like a celebration. Almost, we saw, of course, names like Mick Doohan, Australian motorcycle legend, Ryan Hunter-Ray from the United States, Petter Solberg, the World Rally Champion, and also who could forget Susie Wolff as well, who raced in her final event of her motorsport career. She, of course, hung her helmet up after the Race of Champions too. So it's always great to see, and I think there was a little drought that they had in between since the last Race of Champions in Thailand, where Roman Grosjean won. I think they haven't held one since then, and this is the first time that they have, and it was in London at the Olympic Park. So it'd be great to see, the Race of Champions always, and hopefully maybe one day they can bring it to Australia. How good would that be?
Oh, certainly, we've had the enthusiasm. Wouldn't detract that the bandwagoners, no less, that come out of the woodwork at these kind of events. But I'm sure that the congregation of all of these international stars would go a long way to turning out the crowds. But I think really just for Vettel, it's a good way just to close out a season where he's really gone above and beyond the call of duty, I guess, to really get that tenure at Maranello off to the best possible start. And we keep mentioning it that 2016 is looming very much as almost to the equal. He and Ferrari with Mercedes, they've come such a long way this season, and they've just set the right footing to launch the first realistic bid for a championship, really since 2010. When you look through the years with Fernando Alonso there, he was punching way above his weight subsequent campaigns there, and for Ferrari, they've now really got a genuine package there that they can build a sustained bid around.
Yeah, very much so. But from one champion to another, and Mark Webber finally world champion, it seems, and crowned world champion of the World Endurance Championship after the 6 hours of Bahrain finale over the weekend, and congratulations to the entire number 17 Porsche crew, because as you know, in endurance racing, it's not just the one driver. We've got his teammate Brendan Hartley from New Zealand, former Red Bull junior driver as well, and Timo Bernhard. Three of them clinched the title, but it wasn't an easy victory because they had a few problems throughout the race. Within the first 30 minutes, they lost power and in the car and lost quite a bit of time in the pit lane, but they recovered from the rear of the grid to finish fourth, and that was enough to beat their rivals in the number 7 Audi, Andre Lotterer, Marcel Fessler, and Benny Treluer. So congratulations, I guess, to Webber, because this has been a long time coming. No title in F1 for him, and second year in sports cars, as you said before, and he's finally got that world championship that he can be proud of forever.
What would his ultimate satisfaction being gleaned have been without that setback early on in proceedings, just to make him sweat it that little bit longer, and ultimately came through, and couldn't have happened to a better person, really, get this title. It's probably a huge burden, I guess, off his back after all the years, just a vindication of really that path that he chose to take. And even though it never came quite in Formula One, this is a highly competitive series, the World Endurance Championship. It's growing exponentially year on year, and it's going to be one that's really going to be recognised quite globally, I think, in years to come. And all that remains now for him is to take out that Le Mans laurel next season, and then he can really say he's had the complete career.
Yeah, very much so. And as I completely agree with you when you say that this category definitely deserves a lot more exposure. Not that it comes at the detriment of any other category, but for what it is, endurance racing, it's got such an array of really good drivers, world class drivers, and to see a guy like Webber racing in it as well, and then the potential that we might have Kevin Magnussen there next year, Juan Pablo Montoya, obviously looking at completing the Triple Crown of Motorsport with a Le Mans victory. Sorry about that. But yeah, it really deserves the attention it's getting, but as I said, not to the detriment of any other series, because we've seen that quite a bit where people compare endurance racing to Formula One, and they're really two different eggs, aren't they? But speaking of world-class drivers, one driver who finished on the podium actually in the Bahrain race was Alex Wurz, and we forget that this was also his final race before he hangs up his helmet from motorsport permanently. So it's quite an emotional podium, I guess, because Toyota, the team he races for, have struggled all season, and this was their sole podium, and it was good for him to be on it and really celebrate what has been a pretty good career spanning across, of course, endurance racing. I mean, he's still the youngest ever Le Mans winner, and he's won Le Mans twice, but also his countless end times he's been in Formula One, and current president of the GPDA as well. So good for Vertsy to go out on a high.
Yeah, well, last year the team was a champion, Toyota were, of course, and they've come a long way down the field subsequent 12 months. So it was just nice for him to sign off on a high, and a lot of speculation about what his next move will be, and it probably won't be with Manor, as we've learned subsequently, but he's going to be very prominent off the grid, I'd say, in coming years. But more to discuss anyway, I think, with the Cosworth. Anyway, 2017, this debate about the independent engine from 2017. Certainly Red Bull's a big fan of this, having pretty much staked their continued presence on the grid on this coming to fruition. And Cosworth, though, straight off the top, have come out and said that they will not be the ones who provide this supply for the tender, I guess, from 2017.
Yeah, it's interesting considering when this whole tender thing was announced originally for the alternative engine, everyone sort of jumped towards Cosworth and said, oh, they'd be perfect for this. And Cosworth, no strangers to supplying these sort of engines. As you know, back in the past, they were a force to be reckoned with when it came to Formula One. But alternatively, we have Ilmore Engineering, which of course is fronted by the infamous Mario Willian, and yeah, they are reportedly signing on for the tender to supply. But we learned this morning as well that the team that scored GP3's engine contract for 2016 Mechachrome will be joining the bidding process as well. And they actually revealed images of their engine, what it would look like if it got chosen for Formula One. And their goal is to supply at least 2 teams and 4 cars. So that'd be interesting. And I find it hilarious, Baden, that we still have no clarity from whether the teams will sign off or the commission will sign off on this idea of the alternative engine, but it seems that we've already got people, we've already got potential suppliers jumping on board and saying that they will apply for the tender. So, what do you think? You know, do we need to wait for the teams or whatever to agree with this idea, or do you think that they're just going to go ahead and do it straight away?
F1's a very interesting business model, almost back to front, and they almost work on the assumption that these outcomes will eventually be realised, even if they're a fair way off any definitive answer at this time. So clearly, all these companies are staking a lot of capital in it all coming to pass in 18 months' time, pretty much 2017 and beyond. And we did see a piece from Joe Sayward overnight where he pretty much outlined just how much these companies would stand to lose if they did end up aborting the plans, and certainly from Red Bull's point of view, where it would leave them if all of this didn't end up transpiring from 2017. But it goes to show you that the different trains of thought which we do get in F1, lots of decisions, I guess, to be made, and still quite polarizing, I guess, from a fan point of view. I guess this current formula, which we've seen the past 2 seasons, just how radical the changes will be going forward, and whether there'll be any stability, I guess, in terms of regulations beyond the current, I guess, 4 to 5 year mandate, which currently houses pretty much each regulation. They change it quite frequently, you could say. So it'd be nice in a way, obviously, to see an independent come in and provide these lesser lights with a bit more of an affordable solution, but can't be, I guess, at the detriment of the other side of the party. We've seen Sauber as well. They've been quite critical too of the entire philosophy, which is surprising. You would think from this independent outfit that they'd be one of the leading proponents for it, but no, they're not. They're saying that they're going to almost lose out more so than the rest, because the costs associated for them could be in the 20s or 30s of millions, which is surprising.
Yeah, you would have thought that it would be cheaper for them to do this, but it seems as well this topic, as we've discussed previously, is quite polarizing in a sense, because no one, or not no one, but so there are some people who don't like the idea of having multiple engines on the grid, saying that it really distorts the level of competition, and there'll be no parity, and it really creates a 2-tier formula. But I mean, the argument against that could be is that we almost seem to have it already with the distortion in the between the manufacturers and the customer teams. So it will make not a lot of difference apart from a technical difference if they had different engines. But anyway, we hope to look at more of that, I guess, later on in the next few weeks as we summarize the season and give our viewpoints and whatnot on what's happening. But we should, as I said before about Renault and confirming their Enstone deal this week, we should be also hearing about what Red Bull are doing next season too, as far as engines go, and Toro Rosso. So that's a bit of news we've got to look out for. And if they don't announce anything this week, I mean, what are we gonna what are we gonna do? We're gonna keep waiting for this news to come through.
Oh, it wouldn't be surprising in consideration of McLaren last season. Of course, they waited pretty much Christmas Eve to announce their driver lineup. It kept everyone quite bemused. They were really none the wiser as to which way they would end up swinging. And ultimately, we saw Button retained alongside the returning Fred. And look what's happened there. I guess it did them no good, regardless of the announcement date. But from a working point of view, I think from engine supply, clearly that these teams and manufacturers want to have clarity so they can really move forward as soon as they can and just have the most competitive machinery at their disposal next season. But until that happens, we're all really left in the lurch, and we could be back with a special in the middle of January, 2 weeks before testing, announcing the supply and Renault's possible return. So it's dragged on for pretty much the balance of the season, and continues to do so. But we'll discuss more of that hopefully on Sunday if there is some announcement from one or both of these parties about their 2016 plans. But I think we'll conclude today anyway, as we mentioned off the top, with Nostalgia Straight. Your memories now, 12 months ago, you had arrived in Abu Dhabi, and by all accounts, you did have a blast there, and a bit bittersweet, I guess, for you now, looking back. You want to be there again. I think we all would. Any F1 race is great to be at, but Abu Dhabi, you said, just had this spectacle to it, really, this that entire notion of the day to night transition. It adds a certain factor to it, and there's plenty to do, of course, off the track as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, as you said before, had mixed opinions about Abu Dhabi to begin with. I mean, that's something I don't like. You know, when you go there and you see for yourself the passion, I guess a lot of people do make their way in from overseas. I mean, it was so nice to see a lot of Europeans making their way down, especially a lot of Brits, considering the Lewis Hamilton's potential of winning the championship, and of course he did. So you could have imagined how it was after the race, how crazy things were, everyone with their union flags and everything. But really, I mean, I think Abu Dhabi is one of those places. It's a new and emerging, part of the world. There's plenty to do, and the way that they've constructed Yas Marina Island is Yas Island, sorry, is in a way that it does like racing quite a bit. It is a bit of a touristy place, I have to admit. You won't see a lot of locals on Yas Island, except for, I guess, people who come in to go to the mall or to the Ferrari World theme park. But having the Ferrari theme park there as well, right next door, you've got concert stages, you've got all these hotels, including the beautiful Viceroy Hotel, which is situated on top of the circuit, as a matter of fact. You can't really go past that race, and I wholly recommend, if anyone's looking to go in the future, I wholly recommend it, because great race. And this was my first time also, obviously first time to an overseas Formula One race, but first time looking at a Tilke circuit as well, because you see on TV and in pictures how big they are, but you don't see until you're there in person how colossal they are. I mean, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. When I was doing the pit lane walk on the Thursday, I was just surprised as to how wide the pit lane was as opposed to Albert Park. And then also the track itself, the width of the track is quite wide. You know, the corners, I could see the final corner when I was walking across the track back to the central area. And yeah, so big. And you can, where I was sitting too, the North Grandstand, as alluded to before on the hairpin, you get a really good view of quite a lot of the circuit. You know, you can see them coming over out of turn 3, over turn 4, and then the chicane before the hairpin, of course, through the hairpin, and then exiting out of the hairpin as they thunder down the straight. So that's quite a bit to see. And sure, I mean, the ticket's a little expensive. I think I paid something like $450 to $500 for the ticket. But for that, you know, you get 4 days worth of entertainment, 3 days in the grandstand. You have GP2 and GP3 as well. I I still have memories of the autograph session for McLaren that I went to on the Saturday, having to get there quite early. And the funny thing was that when I pulled up in the cab, and by the way, cab is probably the best way to travel around Abu Dhabi, because they don't really have public transport there, but cabs are quite inexpensive, so it doesn't really matter much. But yeah, I got out of the cab at the gate that was quickest to accessing this autograph stage, and still it was like a half-kilometer dash I had to make. And I saw, hang on, why are all these people crowded there? And I see them wearing McLaren merchandise and having, Jensen Button or Kevin Magnussen helmets, and I'm like, uh-oh, I'm going to have to, like, as soon as the gate opens, I'm going to have to bolt. And bolt I did in I think it was like 35, 36 degree weather, so early in the morning, like 9 o'clock in the morning too. So in the end, it was good times. It makes me proud of being a Formula One fan too, when you can go to an event like that and mix it with all the fans from so many different countries as well. You ask them about how did you get into the sport, and learn about their passions. And it sort of pains me, when I hear people, and I've been going on about this for the last few weeks, it pains me when you have people question your loyalty. I mean, if you've been turned off a little by what's happened in the sport, I mean, give it a break, because some people who are so critical these days probably have never been to a Formula One event before. And I guess if you gave them the opportunity, they would actually enjoy it, despite the race not being as exciting. I mean, the Australian Grand Prix this year, you were there as well, and it was far from being an exciting race, but we still enjoyed the weekend because there was more to do. There was plenty to see, meet the drivers, the fan forum and all that. So I think a Grand Prix weekend, or going to a Grand Prix weekend, is more than just the race itself. It's about the experience overall. And, those nights that after the sessions had concluded, heading to Stars and Bars, which is on the Yas Marina waterfront, probably one of the best sports bars I've been to in the world, sitting, having a quiet drink, reflecting on what's happened over the day. It's all good times. And yeah, now I'm getting a bit sentimental, but would love to go back there someday, perhaps even next year. But there's plenty of other races I'd love to tick off as well on the calendar.
Oh, certainly. Really, just hearing it does induce a bit of envy, you could say. Just the thought of just being on location is really, everywhere you look, there's something to be enjoyed, and the future plans certainly bookmark, if not back to Abu Dhabi, another international event, and even extending back personally. My experience at Silverstone in 2010, that was memorable, and it's still etched very firmly in the memories, not least because our man Mark Webber won that race, and I got as close as I ever had to meeting my idol, the great Michael Schumacher. It didn't quite come to pass, but just to have been within that space and just seeing a really the Australian win the race, really solid memories that will never fade. So I understand completely from your own experiences that really they're ones that you cherish, and certainly ones to look forward to again in the future.
Of course. And it was only in total, it was only 5 days that I was there for, but they're 5 amazing days. And yeah, you can't forget that sort of stuff. And hope to go to another overseas race soon. Definitely next year is the plan, I guess. From both of our perspectives, we're trying to get something in the pipeline happening. But yeah, I guess we can only hope and wait.
It's hard to really summarize in words, I guess, your own personal recollections. It's just there's so much to be gleaned from it all. So really, it's more of a private recollection. You can say that just that you've been there, and then I guess you can reconcile that with the proceedings on the weekend. You can just have that first-hand account of what's going on track and even off track, and certainly, as I did mention, bittersweet. You want to be there again all the same, but you can know that you've got that experience, and certainly goes a long way. But
yeah, I mean, no amount of criticism from the self-proclaimed experts will take away the fact that I was there, I went there, and I didn't go there because I'm supporting a particular driver or, was rooting for Lewis Hamilton to win the championship last year. I went there because of my passion for Formula One, and, who goes out of their way, going to a Formula One event overseas unless you're really passionate about it. So, I mean,
Yeah,
that's something no one can take away from me. And yeah, I'm very proud that I was there. And as I keep saying, hopefully next year or even as soon as next year could be some at another event.
oh, really? Yeah, dedication second to none. The amount of investment and just time that has to be put into it. Certainly not something you just do on a whim. So for you,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I booked my trip. I think in April last year, and that was way before I knew that the championship would go down to the wire. So booking it in April last year and then not leaving until November, plenty of time in between. And I was just, I think, fortunate enough that that championship did happen to go down to the wire. But yeah, I think just going for the experience more or less was more important than seeing who wrapped up the championship.
Oh, absolutely. It's the whole package overall, overwhelms, transcends whatever might take place on track. And certainly, yeah, you get value for money out of it and you meet lifelong friends, I guess, as you did off the track, socializing. Certainly, that's almost the more significant component of the travels. It's not something you just exclusively limit to what you saw on the track.
No, of course not. And everything off track too. As I said, there was concerts, there was the Ferrari World theme park, catching up at the bar as well. I could be on here, I could be talking about this all day, pretty much. The whole trip. I think I remember it that well that I could recite to you what happened on each day. But I think for the for the sake of the viewers, probably not. But yeah, maybe one day.
Probably wrap up for now, but I was thinking on Sunday, certainly probe you a little more about your more immediate experiences, say on the Sunday, the countdown to the race, and what you checked out on the grid and whatnot beforehand. Certainly just to get that build up going before the final race of the season. Certainly there's plenty, as you say, to discuss. You could go on endlessly about it.
Yeah, for sure. Come Sunday, I'll talk more about what happened in the lead up to the race, and of course the tension and the expectations, of a championship that would be fought down to the wire between the two teammates. Rosberg was on pole after Saturday, so but he, simply winning the race wouldn't be enough for him. He'd have to rely on his teammate to fall down on the grid somewhere as well during the race, but. It's all academic now. It's all
Well,
academic now when you look back at it.
Oh, certainly, just looking back 12 months later now, we just hope for a good race where both drivers are afforded the opportunity to go for victory and just to cap off the season in a nice way, of course, because it really just has been a bit of a one-horse race ultimately. So we can only hope for the best. But until Sunday, after the grid has been decided, and hopefully there's a bit more that can spruce up the action on Sunday, I think that's about it. And certainly, yeah, it'll be a bit of a bit of a somber moment, of course, thinking this will be it for 4 months for action, but certainly the countdown can then commence officially to Melbourne.
Yep, indeed, and I think we've gone over time a little bit today as well. But certainly, I enjoyed talking about Abu Dhabi, my experience and everything. But also, previewing the race. What we do every week is even though sometimes we have a race where we didn't enjoy it as much, we still committed 100% to doing it, the podcast, and also being as passionate and enthusiastic about Formula One as possible. Because the night is darkest before the dawn, and this season might have not been the best in terms of the championship fight, but that could mean next year might be the best season that we've ever had. So we're forever optimists.
Well, Formula One, I think fans are a strange breed there. One season to another, you just never know what will be dished up, and that's the beauty of it. As long as you're patient enough to remain true to the cause, you won't be let down. So certainly 2016 beckons many great things.
Indeed, and I think we should just end it there then, Baden. So if you don't
Yeah,
mind taking us out, then.
certainly, yeah, that'll be it for today. We'll be back on Sunday to hopefully come into what will be a memorable way to conclude the season. But I'm Baden as ever, and yeah, Jawad, thank you, and see you Sunday.
Yeah, see you later, guys. Thanks.